Okay, YouTube, it's Sunday, January 24th, coming up on 9:30 in the evening. Out here working on Project Overkill and got some parts on order and ran into some roadblocks, but trying to stay busy on it till we'll get some parts in and materials in, and just wanted to come online and show you what we got going on. Let's take a look. Somewhere along the line I had lost one of the hinge pins that I had painted earlier, so luckily I had a few spares, so went ahead and got one prepped. Got it in epoxy, got the bare metal prepped, and just sanded the bare metal with 80 grit, and then actually feathered everything else out in 180. It's no filler or nothing under there, it's all just epoxy primer. On this particular section right here, I will put some seam sealer in there before I put the skin on. Went ahead and ran some seam sealer in the weld area of the door, and put you guys on pause and I'll turn that over and we'll check everything out. Alright, smeared some back in there, and right there's our repair for the door. It turned out really nice, I think. I can just maybe barely see the weld seam there, and there was no filler put on this. It's just straight epoxy. Like I said, our weather stripping is going to come back over that, so I didn't get too carried away with it. I'm really pleased with the way that repair turned out. The next area that I'm going to be concentrating on is in this wheel well. I've got some areas here that I had cut out and just left them, and I'm going to be going back and adding some metal, welding these little pieces in. And I've got one right down here. This one's going to be a chore. There's actually 3 pieces of metal there. You've got part of the floor, and then you've got an interior piece of metal here that comes down, and then you've got the wheelhouse itself. And it's going to be a chore to get that fixed. I could get real creative and cut this out right through here, and then go ahead and butt weld this piece, spot weld it, and then of course go over it with another piece. And that might be the right way to do it, I'm not real sure. I think what I'm going to try is, I've got a piece of 16 gauge right there, and I've already got my pattern cut out. I'm going to go ahead and cut that 16 gauge out and see how it fits, and then I may end up putting a piece of 20 gauge in here and spot welding it, and then spot welding the 16 gauge to it, and just tie it all in right there. So, and I believe that would be a solid repair for what we got here. It's just a interior piece here on the wheelhouse, and as I make some more progress, I'll bring you guys back. We'll talk to you later. Okay guys, we're working on the passenger side inner fender well repairs, and it's turned out to be a little bit more work than I had anticipated, but that's usually the way it goes. So let's take a look and see what we got. These areas here fit real nice. I'm going to take a little body hammer and try to tap this edge down just a little bit right there, but overall I like how these are fitting. This one down here, give me a little bit of a fight just because all those pieces of metal, and I've got it looking pretty decent. I've still got to cut the bottom off right here, and what I wind up doing is making one piece out of 16 gauge steel there, and you can see my marks right there is where it starts to bend up, and it bends up to about right in here, and then it pretty much is flat. So I took it and put it in a vise right there about that angle, and just kept hammering it over till I got the right bend on it that I wanted. Let's take a look on the back side. Pretty much just got the one 16 gauge piece of steel. Now I have put one small piece of 20 gauge in here, and it goes from about right here down. And the reason I did that, hopefully you can see, is so I'll have something to weld to right here. Now this patch here has to come in just a little bit more, and I can pull that in once I get it tacked. It's right now it's sticking out just a little bit, but it will come in just a little bit more. It's not real tight there. You can see I'm tightening it up. It'll be hard to show on camera. And then once the car's on the rotisserie, I can come back in here and seam seal all this. I didn't really want to do it like that, but I didn't really have any choice there. And you get to looking over here, the whole car is built that way, and that's what was originally there too. You can see that 20 gauge piece of steel right there. But overall, I think it'll be a good repair. Like I said, I still gotta cut the bottom off, and I believe once it's welded and grinded and some epoxy, I believe it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna drill this little hole out right here and clean it up. This is actually a weld here. It looks like a bubble, but it's welded on the other side. There's a bead of weld put in here to tie all that together. So, and I went over there to look at the other side, and it's a little bit worse than this side. It looks totally different. And when you look here, I just kind of hammered it together, welded it. I'll dress a little bit of that up once it's on the rotisserie, but it's pretty solid right there. That's all I got. I'm gonna clean this up and cut the bottom off that one patch and get everything ready for some weld through primer and make a little progress. I'll be back. Okay, I've got the small piece of 20 gauge, got the first spot weld in, and got 2 more to go, and we'll grind that off, hit it with some weld through primer, let it set a while, and we'll be ready to final fit the patch. Got all this up here prepped and ready to go. Get a little bit more done, I'll bring you back. Okay guys, I got a trip hazard in the garage here. I've got a welding torch, the ground for the welder, electrical cord for the light, and an air hose. Too many cords and hoses. But anyway, there's our little backer piece of metal to help our patch come out flush. And it's pretty much ready to weld in now. I did go ahead and that little pinhole that was there, I went ahead and drilled it out, so plug weld it up. And these areas are ready to go too. So I'm probably not going to do any more welding tonight. I'm going to go ahead and probably pick back up tomorrow with it. I gotta go to work tomorrow, so pick back up after work, see how far we get. Okay, YouTube, got that little patch welded in. We'll go ahead and do some grinding here with the wheel. Remember what I was saying about these swivels? This is going to allow me to get this cutoff wheel up in here, and without this, without that swivel, I'd be in a bind. That's why I like these so much. Pretty much done with the grinding wheel. I'll switch over to a roll lock now, and you can see I've just barely got that ground down, almost flush. As a matter of fact, there's a few places like right in there that I actually touched down. Right there is a touchdown. So, but you can see that this weld is actually still sitting proud of this metal. And I don't know about you guys, but right here is always where I have trouble at, is welding up an edge. Say for example, right here, I go to weld this piece to there, just like I did here, it wants to burn away. It always wants to burn away on the edge, and I usually end up having to feather the trigger and usually build up a mound there and go back and have to grind it. Okay guys, here is what that little patch looks like after a final grind. I do have a few of those divots right there, and what that is hammer marks. When I was trying to get that thing lined up, I was coming in here with a body hammer and hitting it, and now I remember doing that last time we was on the project, and now what I'm using is I've got my punch out and I'm using it to help me align the metal, and it's working really good and not putting those hammer marks in it. I just come in here with a punch and just barely lightly tap it wherever it's low at. But overall, that turned out really nice. It's got these spot welds here on the edge of it. I believe it's welded good. It's 3 pieces of metal there, so, and I wasn't really trying to penetrate to this metal. I was just trying to burn it in to this surrounding metal. So it's a very difficult area to work on the car. It's hard to get this light situated, and it's hard to see trying to weld inside this fender well. I originally thought if I replaced this fender well, this outer wheelhouse, that I would do this while it was off. It'd been a lot easier, but we're doing it now. So okay guys, this one here being a little stubborn. It's pretty much wanting to blow holes every time I touch it. It blew a hole on this one, and this one. And this was my initial tack right there, and it barely did move it. So, but I wish it would have been just a little bit over here. I believe it's going to be okay. It's going to take a little bit of time on this one. This is one grind session, and then I finish welding up the edge there, and I hit a few extra spots there that look like they may potentially be voids, and getting ready to do a final grind on it and see how it turns out. I just barely turned the heat down just a little bit, so once I made that adjustment I wasn't really burning through anymore. So anyway, I'm gonna do some grinding and I'll show you how it turns out. Okay guys, I got that patch all welded in, did a final grind on it. You can barely tell where I was welding it. Right in that area. And again, I believe that's hammer marks, because I've got it up here where I was trying to get the metal straight. But I've put a flashlight in behind there in this seam, cut the lights out just to see if I could see any light coming through, and I don't. So I believe we're going to be ready to go for some epoxy right in that area. And we're coming up on 10 to 9. I believe that's going to do it for me tonight. Be back out here later this week, see if we can't finish this patch, and we'll get some epoxy on all this bare metal here and there, and we'll move on to the next problem.